The ripple. The stars stretched endlessly before Captain Lyra Valen as she gazed out from the observation deck of the Vanguard. Humanity had conquered the stars, had planted its flag on distant planets, and had stretched its influence across the galaxy. The universe, vast and unfathomable, was now their playground. Yet for all their triumphs, there were still mysteries that lay beyond their reach. Her mind often drifted to thoughts of what lay beyond the known universe, what wonders and dangers might exist in the unexplored sectors. And yet nothing could have prepared her for what was about to happen. The quiet hum of the ship's engines suddenly began to fluctuate, a deep vibration running through the hull. Lyra's brow furrowed. A ripple. A disturbance in the fabric of space-time itself. "Lieutenant Zane," she called, her voice steady but tinged with concern. "What's happening?" Zane, the ship's navigator, looked up from his console, his face pale. "Captain, this isn't normal. There's something in the data, some kind of rift in space-time. It's expanding." Lyra felt a chill creep up her spine. A rift? Here? In the middle of the unexplored territories? She moved quickly to his side, her eyes scanning the readings. "What do you mean expanding?" she asked, her voice sharp. "The rift, Captain," Zane replied, his fingers flying over the controls. "It's not just a small anomaly. It's growing, and it's distorting everything around it. Gravity, energy fields, even time itself. This isn't something we've ever encountered before." As she turned to face her crew, Lyra knew the stakes were far greater than anyone had anticipated. The Vanguard had come to chart the unknown, but this was something entirely different. She made a decision. Prepare for a close approach to the rift. We need to understand what we're dealing with before it grows beyond our control. The approach, the Vanguard glided toward the rift, and with each passing moment, the situation grew more and more bizarre. The stars themselves seemed to flicker erratically, like faulty light bulbs, some vanishing entirely, others appearing in places they had no business being. Gravity fluctuated, pulling at the ship in strange, unpredictable ways. Lyra stood on the bridge, her gaze fixed on the rift. It had once been a faint ripple, a distant disturbance, but now it had grown, pulsing, with an unnatural light. It was as if something in the very fabric of space had torn open. "Captain," Lieutenant Zane called, his voice strained. "The readings, they don't make sense. Time is distorting. We can't trust the chronometers anymore. We're losing track of time itself." "Is it the rift?" Lyra asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Yes," Zane replied. "It's like the rift is bending time around us. Nothing is as it should be." The crew members, who had spent their entire careers studying the stars, felt a growing unease. This was no natural phenomenon. They were witnessing something ancient, something impossible. "Stay focused," Lyra ordered, trying to keep the crew grounded. But deep down, she couldn't shake the feeling that they were about to stumble into a danger far greater than any they had ever imagined. The ship continued its course, closing in on the rift. As they neared, a strange hum filled the air, almost like a voice, but not one made by human means. It was as though the rift itself was alive. Lyra's heart raced. "Captain," Commander Elias Albrecht called out. "You need to see this." She rushed to his side, her breath catching in her throat. As she looked at the display, it was a vision of something unearthly. A fleet of enormous, organic-like ships drifting toward the rift, their forms pulsating and shifting as if they were alive. And at the heart of the rift, something even more unsettling. A shadow. A figure. It was massive, its shape constantly shifting, and it radiated an unsettling presence. Lyra couldn't see its face, but she felt its gaze. It was as if it knew they were coming. "We have to know what that is," Lyra murmured. "Prepare for a closer scan. I want full analysis of everything." Into the rift. The Vanguard crept closer to the rift. The ship's systems were struggling to maintain stability. Each movement felt heavier, as if the ship itself was being pulled toward something far more powerful than anything they had encountered before. The viewscreen now showed an astonishing sight, a massive tear in space pulsing with energy. But beyond that, What captured Lyra's attention was what lay on the other side, a world unlike any she had ever seen. "Captain, the rift. It's not just a tear in space," Zane said, his voice trembling. "It's a gateway, and it's not just to another region of space. It's something more." Before Lyra could respond, the rift seemed to expand further, a violent surge of energy sending the Vanguard into a violent spin. Alarms blared as the ship's hull groaned under the strain. The crew scrambled to regain control, but the rift was doing something to them, something they couldn't explain. "We're losing control," shouted Zane. The ship bucked violently, and for a moment, everything seemed to fall apart. Lyra gripped the edge of the captain's chair, trying to steady herself as the universe itself seemed to bend and twist around them. Then, just as quickly as it had begun, the ship was thrown clear. The rift had exploded in a brilliant flash of light, a wave of energy that sent the Vanguard hurtling away. When the chaos subsided, the ship found itself drifting in an eerie calm. "Report," Lyra demanded. "Everything's offline," Zane said, his voice hollow. "But we're in some kind of other dimension. Nothing is as it should be." Lyra's gaze turned to the view screen where the rift had fully opened. Beyond it lay a strange alien world, a city suspended in mid-air, glowing with a strange, unearthly light. The other side Lyra stood at the viewport, her heart pounding as she looked out at the strange new world. The rift had opened into another dimension, one where the very laws of physics seemed irrelevant. The stars outside were unfamiliar, and time itself felt fractured. "We're not just in another part of the galaxy," Lyra whispered. "We're somewhere else entirely." Zane pulled up data on the strange city ahead. "That's not a colony. That's not even a human-made structure. This is something else. It's alien." Suddenly, the comms crackled to life. "Captain Valen, this is Commander Albrecht. You need to see this." Lyra made her way quickly to the command center. There, on the main screen, was a display of the city, the same glowing city, but this time the image zoomed in to show what seemed like massive organic structures, alive and shifting. "It's not just a city," Albrecht said, his voice shaking. "It's a living entity." Lyra's breath caught. The realization hit her with force. This isn't just a world, is it? It's a being, a massive sentient entity, and we've just walked right into its domain. The unseen watcher, the closer they came to the city, the more the ship's systems began to behave erratically. The rift wasn't just a passage. It was a living, breathing entity, and it was reacting to their presence. Lyra could feel its pulse. In the air, a low hum that seemed to resonate in her very bones. "We're being watched," Commander Albrecht said, his voice tight. "By what?" Lyra asked. "By it," Albrecht replied, gesturing to the shadowy figure she had seen earlier in the rift. It was growing larger, looming at the center of the city, its form shifting and twisting like smoke in a storm. Lyra stared at the figure. It was as if the rift had become a doorway and the creature beyond it was aware of their every move. "It's waiting for us," she whispered. The choice. The Vanguard was now close enough to the city to see its details, its vast organic spires, its energy fields, and the endless stretch of strange creatures that moved within it. But at the heart of it all was the shadow, the figure. That seemed to be the source of everything. "Captain," Zane said softly, "we've crossed a threshold. We can't go back. The rift won't let us." Lyra stood in front of the view screen, staring at the alien city and the being that ruled over it. The choice was clear. Humanity could explore this new realm, or they could attempt to return to their galaxy. But the rift wouldn't let them simply leave. They were not just explorers now. They were intruders in an ancient alien domain. The figure in the city was watching, waiting, and Lyra knew that whatever decision they made would define the future of humanity. "Prepare to make contact," Lyra said, her voice